A very warm welcome to the new episode of Ink and Insights. This is your host, Sumit Sarma Samir. This is a Nepal based podcast, and if you are interested in listening to the thought leaders and Nepali influencers from around the world, please subscribe to my channel. I'm extremely pleased to welcome Swami Sarvapriyananda in my program today. Swami Sarvapriyananda has been the spiritual leader of the Vedanta Society of New York since 2017. The Vedanta Society of New York was established by Swami Vivekananda in 1894. Swami Sarvapriyananda joined the Ramakrishna Mutt in 1994 and received sannyasas in 2004. He served as an acharya of the Monastic Probationers Training Center at Vellore Mutt, India. He also served in various capacities in different educational institutes of the Ramakrishna Mission in India and as the Assistant Minister of the Vedanta Society of Southern California. During 2019 and 2020, he was an inaugural fellow at the Harvard Divinity School. Swami Sarvapriyananda is a well-known speaker on Vedanta, and his talks are extremely popular globally. He has been a speaker on various prestigious forums such as TEDx, SAND, Google Talk, etc. He has also been invited to speak at several universities across the world, including Harvard University. Swamiji has engaged in dialogue with many eminent thinkers such as Deepak Chopra, Rupert Spira, Rich Archer, David Chalmers, and Sam Harris. He has played a prominent role in organizing and participating in various interfaith panels and seminars, including speaking at the World Parliament of Religions in Toronto in 2018 and at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Some of Swami Sarvapriyananda's popular talks have been compiled into ebooks. Who Am I? What is Vedanta? And Dissolve into Infinity are currently available on Amazon Kindle. It's such a pleasure and honor to have you on my show, Swamiji. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Sumitji. It's a pleasure.
I think it would be more interesting to listen something on Vedanta itself, Swamiji. Since you are here, I want to get started with the very basic questions. What is Vedanta and what are its fundamental principles or philosophy?
Yes, Vedanta is probably the oldest living spiritual philosophy in the world, the most ancient. It's the spiritual philosophy which is based on the Vedas, which are the oldest living religious texts in the world. So Vedanta, there's a definition of Vedanta. Vedanta is Upanishads. So Upanishads are these spiritual philosophical texts which you find as part of the Vedas. So the definition which we used to memorize as brahmacharis when we were learning Vedanta, the classical definition is Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam. The source of spiritual knowledge called the Upanishads is Vedanta. So Anta, Veda of course means the text, the Vedas, or it also means knowledge. And Anta means the final or the highest in the sense of the Sanskrit word Siddhanta. Siddhanta means the final conclusions of the Vedic thought system. That's what you find in the Upanishads. Right. And then, of course, after that, this has been developed into multiple systems and schools of thought by great acharyas over centuries and millennia. So that's the textual basis of Vedanta.
Yeah. So my second question: what are the primary texts of Vedanta, and how should one approach their study?
Yes. So the root texts are the Upanishads, so these Upanishads, the summary of these teachings of the Upanishads one can find in the most famous text of Vedanta, which everybody knows, that is the Bhagavad Gita. And then there is a third text called the Brahma Sutras. What these Brahma Sutras does is, it takes up the various questions which may arise when we study the Upanishads. We may have a lot of confusion, many doubts about what are these Upanishads actually trying to say, what is the central message. So the Brahma Sutras takes up such issues and clarifies them. Now, the great acharyas, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, many of them, what they have done is they have written commentaries on the Upanishads, on the Bhagavad Gita, and primarily on the Brahma Sutras. And so these commentaries have formed the textual basis for the different schools of Vedanta. So Shankaracharya's commentaries on the Upanishads, Gita, and Brahma Sutra is the basis for what we call classical Advaita Vedanta. Similarly, Ramanuja's commentary on the Brahma Sutras is the basis for Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, and so on. Then each of these schools has a vast range of literature. So, for example, Advaita Vedanta, the school with which I am most familiar, you have not only Shankaracharya's commentaries, but also numerous other texts, some written by Adi Shankaracharya, some written by post-Shankara writers. Famous among them are Viveka Chudamani, Panchadashi, then, very technical works like Advaita Siddhi or Khandana Khandakadya. So these are all Sanskrit texts written over a period of 1,000+ years, which form the literary or the textual groundwork, foundation of the system of Advaita Vedanta. Similarly, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, they also have vast literature. Also in regional languages. So that's the textual foundations of the range of literary sources of Advaita Vedanta, and of course other schools of Vedanta. But it's not limited to that. Even if you go to the Puranas, in the midst of those stories, you will find Vedantic teachings. The Vedanta is spread all over the Hindu culture, basically.
Right.
And there are other independent works which are not part of this corpus. For example, like something like Yoga Vashishta. It's a highly Vedantic text, but independent and highly regarded among Vedanta practitioners. So, all right. So that is the textual side of it.
Yeah.
Now, what does Vedanta say? And I will focus on Advaita Vedanta because that is my primary home tradition. But we must keep in mind that Vedanta means not only Advaita Vedanta, but numerous schools of Vedanta are there. And all of them have thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of followers. And they are all ancient schools. Most of them are very ancient.
Right.
Now, Advaita Vedanta, the teachings can be put very simply. Drawing on the Upanishads, there are these sentences called Mahavakyas. In the tradition, they're called Mahavakya. Mahavakya means literally great sentence, but not in the sense of a long sentence. In Sanskrit, of course, one can have very long sentences, but in the sense of a profound sentence. And these Mahavakyas, they all tell you the same thing, the same teaching. The teaching is, you are that, Tattvamasi, from the Chandogya Upanishad. Or Aham Brahmasmi, I am that ultimate reality Brahman. Or I am Atma Brahma, this very self is Brahman. Or Prajnanam Brahma, consciousness is Brahman. All of them are telling us the same thing. So this is one way of summarizing the teaching of Advaita Vedanta. If you expand a little bit, there is a famous saying attributed to Adi Shankaracharya, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. There is an ultimate reality Brahman, which is then further explained as limitless existence, limitless consciousness, and limitless bliss. And this world is an appearance of that Brahman. And what are we, you and I? We are that Brahman. You are Brahman. Jiva is sentient beings are Brahman. The world is an appearance, and Brahman is the only reality or ultimate reality. To expand a little further, do you want me to just expand a little more?
Yeah, please. I think these Mahavakyams were talking about the very fundamental nature of human being as you and I. So could you please expand on that, Swamiji? It's very interesting topic.
Do that. And we have such a range of texts to select from. What I will do is, I'll select from, I will quote from one of Shankaracharya's most famous works called Dakshinamurti Stotra. And in the first verse of that Dakshinamurti Stotra, he gives us the whole basic teaching of Advaita Vedanta. So the first verse is, it goes like this, very poetic. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam pashyan atmani mayaya bahirivodbhutam yatha nidraya yas sakshat kurute prabodha samayi swatmanameva dvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Now here, Shankaracharya says that this world, so all the elements of Advaita are here. That Brahman is the ultimate reality, that it is non-dual, that the nature of Brahman is pure consciousness, the world is an appearance, you are that Brahman, our whole problem is due to ignorance about ourselves, and the solution is knowledge about ourselves. All of these are packed into this one verse. How?
Right.
So what Shankaracharya does here is he uses two examples. One is mirror example. And the second one is dream example. The mirror example, imagine, he says the universe is like a city seen in a mirror. Suppose you have a mirror and in a distance there is a city, and you put the mirror towards that, you can see the whole city reflected in the mirror. Now forget the original city. Look at the mirror and the reflected city. In that mirror, you will see streets and buildings and cars and whatnot. You will see everything in the city is there in the mirror, in the reflection. But notice something. The reflected city, the city in the mirror, the ground of that, the adhisthana of that, the reality of that is the mirror. So it is in the mirror that the reflection is appearing. By that, what it means is, wherever the reflection is there, the mirror must be there. And the reflection cannot exceed the mirror. Reflection cannot exist without the mirror. So it's exactly like that. Let me finish the example. The second thing which we will notice is, in the reflection, it is the mirror which is the reality. If you go to the mirror, you will see only mirror, only glass is there. Actually, buildings and streets, you forget the original thing outside. Actually, buildings and streets and cars are not there. If you see, it appears like that, but it is just glass. It is a mirror.
Sure.
So mirror is the reality and the city is the appearance. Reflection is the appearance.
Right.
Another thing worth noticing is that whatever happens in that city does not actually affect the mirror. Whatever happens in the reflection has no effect on the mirror. And finally, one can also notice that the non-duality. Shankaracharya points out that it's not that there are thousands of buildings and people and cars. There's only one mirror. You can either count the mirror, buildings and people and cars, but if you count mirror, that means only mirror is there. With respect to the mirror, only mirror is there. There are no second thing. You cannot count that, yes, mirror is there, plus some people are there, some cars. No, those are only reflections. They don't have any reality of their own. Only mirror is there. So it's a mirror non-duality. So exactly like that, he gives a second example, like dreams. In our dreams, it is I, the dreamer, who am the ground of the dream. It is based on me that in my mind only the dream is going on. The dream has no existence apart from my mind. Not only that, whatever happens in the dream cannot affect me, the waking person. Once I wake up, it has no effect on me. It scares me, or it can tempt me or terrify me in the dream, but when I wake up, no problem at all.
Most of the time we tend to forget it.
We tend to forget it. And when you remember and look back, you say, oh, it was a dream. It doesn't matter. Whatever happened, good or bad, doesn't matter, because we discount it immediately as a dream. And finally, the non-duality of it, that when I wake up, in my dream, I might have seen many people. I might have eaten many dishes and gone to many places. But when I wake up, I realize none of that actually happened. All those people did not exist apart from my mind, apart from me, the dreamer. All that food which I ate, all the places which I went, none of that exists as a separate entity apart from me. It does not exist as a second reality. So my mind, the dreamer's mind is, or I, the dreamer, am non-dual with respect to the contents of the dream. Whatever is in the dream cannot be counted separately. I mean, if I eat one laddu now, and then I dream about eating 3 more laddus, I cannot wake up and say I ate 4 laddus, because those 3 dream laddus cannot be counted. Now, these 2 examples Shankaracharya gives to prove what, or to indicate what. He says exactly the same situation is with consciousness and this universe of our experience. This world, this body, this mind, this entire thing is an appearance in consciousness. So consciousness is like the mirror. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam. As the universe appears, is like a city in the mirror. Similarly, the universe is an appearance in consciousness. And it does not exist apart from consciousness.
Right.
And whatever happens in the universe, whatever happens in the body and in the mind cannot affect that consciousness. Just like the mirror cannot be affected by the reflected city. If the reflected city burns down also, mirror will not be affected. If the reflected city, there is a flood also, mirror will not become wet because it's a reflection. Also, that the consciousness is non-dual with respect to the universe. That means the universe appears in consciousness, but it is not a second reality apart from consciousness. In that appearance, only consciousness exists, only Brahman exists.
Right.
So these features, that consciousness is the reality in which the universe is an appearance, that consciousness is completely unaffected by what happens in the universe or body or mind, and consciousness is non-dual. That means other than consciousness, there's nothing. Although the whole universe is appearing, really you cannot count it separately. Like those 3 dream laddus, you cannot count it separately. So just like the mirror, just like the dreamer, consciousness is the reality. And just like the reflected city or the contents of a dream, the universe is an appearance in this consciousness. Then he goes on to say, you are this consciousness. Our problem is because we do not realize it. That's why we think I am this little body and mind. Just like we suffer so much in the dream because we don't realize it in the dream. So similarly, not knowing our real nature as consciousness, which is the background, the reality of all this, we think we are this little body. We don't deny that we are conscious. We say, no, consciousness is also there, but I am also body, mind, plus some consciousness is there. Right. Advaita, Shankara is reversing his consciousness is the reality in which body, mind, and world are appearing. And so this consciousness with the power of Maya, which projects this universe, this is called God in Advaita Vedanta, Saguna Brahman. And I, the Jiva, individual being, the student of Vedanta, I am that one consciousness. So at the end, Shankaracharya bows down. I bow down to Shiva, the south-facing Shiva, Dakshinamurti Shiva, who is also appearing as my guru, who is also the same consciousness which I am. So it is, basically it's a teaching of oneness.
To further simplify, I mean, it's a lot many things that you have said already. If I would say that, all the differences that we see in the modern world in terms of caste, ethnicity, race, gender, can I say that it's all constructed in from this particular perspective that you just outlined right now?
Yes and no. First of all, one has to give respect to the differences. We cannot dismiss it by saying, oh, so you're saying it's all a dream. No, it's only a dream from the ultimate perspective, from the perspective of Nirguna Brahman, in which it all appears. For example, a scientist might say, all of it is just quarks. Electrons, protons, or quarks, or superstrings. No, but also at the level of our world, yes, there is race and gender and caste and the problems associated with them. Don't dismiss them. If you dismiss them, you'll end up in trouble. But then what is the use of Advaita Vedanta? The use of Advaita Vedanta is saying that these are all, as you said, these are constructs. They are at one level. They're all relative. There is a deeper or a higher truth in which we are one limitless existence consciousness bliss. And there we are not only all equal, we are all one, identical. We are one with each other. It's not just a rhetorical call for universal brotherhood or sisterhood. We are actually one with each other. This ekatma bhava, sarvatma bhava. You are the atma or the self or the consciousness, which is the reality of all beings. You are one with the entire universe. Not only all races or all genders or castes, but also all living beings and also all non-living entities. They are all one with you. They are not different from you. Swami Vivekananda used to say, you can actually regard it as a material universe. But even there, it is one notion of matter. But if you go deeper, it's a mental universe. It's one notion of mind. If you go deeper, he says it is all spirit, consciousness, Atman, Brahman, God, whatever you call it, divine. So that's the deepest level. But at every level, this unity exists. Oneness exists. One might ask, so if it is all ocean of matter, why not stop at matter only? Matter, energy, time, space, be a materialist. Why? But the problem with the materialist approach is now we are beginning to see. We can segue into this so later on. The modern science of consciousness is beginning to show that if you take just a materialist paradigm, you will run into difficulties in explaining mind and consciousness.
Right. So, yeah, my second question was related to, in fact, the whole science of consciousness that, the world has started really talking about. It's quite debated these days. Where does this development really stand as of now, Swamiji? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm not an expert, and regardless of what people say, but not at all. I'm just curious about it. The reason I'm curious is it's wonderful to be living, if you're interested in Vedanta or Buddhism or Sankhya, any of these ancient Indian philosophies, it's wonderful to be living at this point, because for the first time in the last 100, 200 years, science has become seriously interested in consciousness. One of the leading neuroscientists in the world, Christoph Koch, who was the chief scientist of Paul Allen Brain Research Institute, he's still one of the leading researchers in consciousness studies. He said, I heard him in a debate here in Brooklyn. He was saying in the debate that when I started my career in consciousness studies many, many years ago, all my colleagues told me it's a career killer. It will destroy your career if you study some aspect of the brain. Don't study consciousness. But now it's a hot topic. It's a hot topic.
Yeah.
What is consciousness? And of course, remember that when I speak about consciousness from the Advaita perspective or some other schools of Indian philosophy, we're talking about pure consciousness. This is not a category which is very clear to modern consciousness studies people. Modern consciousness studies people, they study mind and consciousness together. Mm-hmm. So thinking, emotions, ideas, feelings, perceptions, judgments, and our what we are doing right now, talking and interacting, all these conscious experiences, they will take it all as consciousness studies. Right. Fine, that's no problem there. Vedanta will make a distinction. They will say that you are mixing up mind and consciousness, and mind is also separate from consciousness. Anyway, now what has happened in the last 20, 30 years, a lot of interest has come. Mm-hmm. One reason why this interest has come now, perhaps, is there has been a development in brain scanning technology, this fMRI scans and all. So very much closer, more detailed study of the brain is now possible than was perhaps possible 40, 50 years ago. So that's one reason. So brain science is advancing. Second, I think another reason might be the development of computers and now latest AI. People are very curious about it now, because AI is basically modeling our intelligence. That's the meaning, artificial intelligence, modeling our intelligence. So if artificial intelligence is important, what about the original intelligence? Now people are asking, so what is this intelligence? What is mind? What is consciousness? So this also is one reason why people have become very interested. There is one philosopher, David Chalmers, who is right here in the New York University Mind-Brain Consciousness Unit. He's famous. He's one of the most famous philosophers living today. He's famous particularly because he coined the term hard problem of consciousness. Hard problem of consciousness means that our brains are objective things. And just like this shirt and like this mobile phone, they're material, objects, things. Brain is also a thing, very sophisticated. And our subjective experience seems to be so different from the object. How can an objective thing like the brain get subjective experience? After all, look at this world. As far as we see, none of these things, table, chair, even AI, even computers, they don't seem to have subjective experience. They don't have feelings. They don't have internal experience like we are all having. We are all seeing color. We are hearing sounds. We are making decisions. We have experience of remembering. This experience, this first-person experience, what it feels like to be a conscious being, that is not present in anything. No object can generate that. Suddenly, how one thing called brain is able to generate that? So this is the question, because if you study the brain, if you make it even more fine-grained analysis, if you study the brain, you will find enormously complex neuronal connections. There is a neurochemistry of the brain. There is blood flow in the brain. There is finally what you will come to with the most sophisticated instrument is tiny electrical activity in the brain. Mm-hmm. But how that tiny electrical activity is generating color and smell and taste and touch and joy and suffering and poetry and art and science and neuroscience also, everything has been done there. How? Where is the link? Little burst of electricity. Right now you are seeing me. You are hearing my voice. But the neuroscientist can only find, if they scan your brain, they will find little bursts of electricity. How these two are connected, this is called the hard problem of consciousness, and now it has become a hot topic. There are people who will completely deny. They'll say that, we will solve it. How will you solve it? The answer is, they call it promissory materialism. Give us 30, 40 more years, I promise to solve it.
Okay.
I'll give you a materialistic solution, but you have to give me 30, 40 more years. So one line of inquiry is that. And it's a powerful line of inquiry, because after all, materialistic explanation is there for everything else. Physics and all our technology is powered by materialistic explanation. So they are saying, why not consciousness? Consciousness can also be explained in a materialistic way. So far, no success. Okay. And there's another group which says that, like David Chalmers and others, who says that no, you cannot explain consciousness through just brain. Clearly, brain is implicated in that, but brain is not sufficient to explain consciousness. Maybe consciousness is a fundamental reality. Moment you say consciousness is a fundamental reality, like space, time, matter, energy, consciousness is one more reality, then you're coming very close to these ancient philosophies, like Buddhism, like Vedanta, like Jainism, and all these ancient philosophies, they consider consciousness to be a fundamental reality.
Right. So with these developments, Swamiji, do you feel that, one of the very gripping questions in the history of knowledge had been, who am I? Is human civilization coming closer to respond to this question more scientifically?
Yes, we have always been responding to this question. I think human curiosity is the most powerful force in our psyche, at least in psychology. First, direction of that curiosity is outwards. So you explore. There's an age of exploration. Then you try to understand this physical universe. Then the attention turns this way. Normally, we should think that it should start with yourself and then go out. But naturally, our attention is outward. So we are fascinated by the world first. Then the question arises, who is it that is doing all this? Then we investigate the body, investigate the mind. Then we ask the big question, consciousness, who am I? So we have always been trying to answer this question, who am I? And we have got many answers to it. I would say all are partial answers. One answer is, I am a body, a biological being, a machine. Let's not dismiss that idea. It's a powerful idea. And based on that, our medicine works. So I am a biological machine, this body. I am a social being. I am an economic being. I am a socioeconomic being. I am an emotional being, a psychological being. Like this, as you move further and deeper, then comes the question of, I am a spiritual being. And what is the meaning of spirituality? That also becomes a big question. Now, I think it's not that we are now scientifically answering the question, who am I? We are asking deeper and deeper questions. For the first time, as far as the question is concerned, not the answer, as far as the question is concerned, in many ways, science, philosophy, and spirituality are coming together, asking the same question.
Right. So, in that context, now, how do you sort of use this new knowledge in our day-to-day life in order to make sense of all these new developments?
Yes. First of all, let us remember the ancient philosophies, Vedanta, Sankhya, Buddhism, Jainism, all these ancient philosophies, and indeed the other religious philosophies which are at the core of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and all. They were all meant to make our lives better. They were this question of whether God exists or whether who am I, what am I, do I exist after death of the body? All these questions were to lead to a solution which would make our lives better. It was all meant to overcome suffering, to give meaning to our lives, to give purpose to our lives, and a better life, maybe a more ethical life, more nobler life, more fearless life. So that was the purpose of all these ancient philosophies, including Vedanta. But now also we must not forget, today we are living in this modern world, which is a world of science and technology. The founders of these great ancient philosophies, like Shankara and others, they were people with very open and very intelligent and engaged minds. So if they lived today, they would certainly be happy to engage with modern thought, both secular thought and scientific thought also. I think, to answer your question, what we need today is an amalgamation, a synthesis of the best elements of our ancient spiritual traditions with the latest discoveries in psychology, in the science of consciousness, and also medicine and other aspects of well-being. And this kind of synthesis is happening. It is beginning to happen. I'll give you one example. There's a new branch of psychology called positive psychology. This has started only in the last 25 years. All the roots are much older, but started in the last 25, 30 years. The idea is, so far psychology and psychiatry were, to cure illness. Somebody has mental illness, how to cure that? But it would take you from -5 to 0. But what about from 0 to +5? Can it make our lives better? Or only it will cure disease? So positive psychology is, even if we do not have any mental problems, from a normal person, how that normal person can make the life more enriched. For example, better focus or concentration, which is very much needed today. Control over attention, concentration. Happiness, how to get more fulfillment in life. Then resilience, how to face shocks and failures and struggles in life and yet bounce back. All these, courage. So all these positive qualities, how to develop them. Here you will see psychology is coming in together with spirituality, and a kind of new synthesis is emerging.
There's one tendency that a new generation of youth tends to think that, there's no use of this kind of knowledge to sort of handle day-to-day lives. And there's, again, resurgence of feeling or understanding that it's really important to have this kind of understanding. How do you see that these two divergent views coming together in this present context?
So education is an answer to that, because we must introduce this to the youth with the first and foremost is that it is useful for you. Whether they're ancient or not, you forget that, put it to the back. Whether it is religion or not religion or psychology, forget it. But it will make, for example, it will help you with concentration.
Right.
It will develop your personality. It will give meaning to your life, purpose to your life. It will make you happier in this life, here and now. If you're a student, if you're a researcher, if you are entering your job market, you get newly married, starting a family, everywhere. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, ones and zeros. If you collect a series of zeros, total value is still 0. But if you put 1 before the zeros, then all the zeros will get value. 1 0 is 10, then 100, then 1000, like that. So spirituality is that knowledge, which is like that 1, which will make the rest of your life valuable. At first, one does not seem so. When initially in the beginning of our life or career, one is very happy that I'm very happy with my new job, my new gadget, I'm visiting different places in the world. And one feels, why do I need more than that? But very quickly, within few years, one will get that maturity and feel that, what is the point of it? What is the purpose? What is the meaning of my life? How can I, practical questions, how can I focus on my work? The social media is distracting me so much. Young people I see in all the Ivy League colleges here, they're all struggling with the same problem caused by social media, by distraction, by lack of meaning. And answer to all of that, it is there in these spiritual traditions. So education, in the sense that when we communicate this to the younger generation, it must be communicated as something which is very valuable in their lives. Not because father or mother or grandfather is saying that. It's very valuable for their lives right now.
Right. So yeah, this is I think the dilemma that societies in our part of world particularly is facing right now. It's like we have so much of things to share and so much of learnings, gems, but we tend to feel that it's of no use. And then the West have started realizing that whatever we had been practicing in the past is of enormous importance, and they have tried to sort of inculcate that into their daily lives, and we sort of in our part of the world have been giving it up. I mean, I think it's the timing and the narrative that also prevails. How can we sort of rework on that so that, we begin to understand the values of this knowledge.
I agree with you completely. I hear of Indian universities where philosophy department is not there anymore because students are not interested in studying. And I've seen the contrast. We were sitting in Harvard University studying Madhusudana Saraswati's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita.
Exactly.
And the entire student group, I think only 1 or 2 Hindus were there, and everybody else was non-Hindu. All were Westerners. Professor was also a Westerner. And in contrast, in India, in the big universities, philosophy department is slowly disappearing because lack of interest. I have seen one thing though. The diaspora, the immigrants who come from the subcontinent, Nepal, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and all, they come, they work hard here, they achieve their dreams. And once they have done that, because now they have got what they wanted. Mm-hmm. You have now settled down in New York, working in Wall Street and all of that, you have got it now. Now what? Then many of them become newly interested in spirituality.
Right.
Then what is the point of life? Then what will give meaning to my life? What will make my life more peaceful, more meaningful? You mentioned the subcontinent. I am just reminded, since it is a Nepal-centric program, one of the greatest scholars and practitioners working now here in New York is a professor from Nepal, Professor Sthaneshwar Timalsina. He's a great master of Vedanta, a solid scholar of Vedanta, and also a practitioner and a scholar and teacher of Kashmiri Shaivism. So multiple systems of thought, but he is equally conversant in them. And he's from Nepal. Perhaps you can have him on the program some other time.
Sure. Great to know that, Swamiji. Thank you. Well, with that note, Swamiji, I must thank you for your time. We had a really fruitful and wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for your time, and hope to meet you again sometimes in future.
Certainly, Swamiji. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.